Wow, what an experience getting to watch The Northman in the cinema. Hey guys, welcome back to Adlib Talk, and this is my review for Robert Eggers' The Northman. Before we start with this review, as always guys, don't forget to leave a like on this video and please do consider subscribing. So, The Northman is Robert Eggers' third full-length movie following The Witch, which is my personal favorite movie of probably the last decade, and The Lighthouse, which is another one of my favorite movies ever, to be honest. Eggers is a true author. His style is very particular, and I feel like his movies are not for everyone. As you can tell, however, I'm a big lover of his style of movies, and I truly appreciate the lengths at which he goes for historical realism. The imagery and symbolism he puts in his movies is just incredible. For The Witch, Eggers had done a massive amount of research, for example, reading accounts from the 17th century of Puritan-related and early colonial history. By exploring through numerous primary sources, he managed to flesh out the wonderful script for The Witch. He even used Old English dialogue in that movie to make it as period accurate as possible. Now, with regard to The Northman, it really does show once more that a lot of research has gone into this work. The story is based on the Nordic tale of Prince Amleth, who is determined to avenge his father. This story was eventually adapted by Shakespeare himself into, you guessed it, Hamlet. The story is very different to the original Icelandic saga, although I highly recommend you give it a listen after watching the movie, as it is really a fascinating tale. The plot for The Northman is a simple one. It is, to be honest, a pretty basic revenge story, and obviously I will not be spoiling anything here which hasn't been shown in the trailers, but the basic premise is that it is 895 after Christ, and King Orvandil has returned to his kingdom after his conquests abroad. There he finds his wife Queen Gudrun and his son Prince Amleth eagerly awaiting him. He takes his son to this ceremony in which he bestows responsibilities onto the shoulders of Amleth. However, soon after, he is ambushed and murdered. Amleth barely escapes and joins a group of Viking berserkers with whom he raids and pillages the lands of the Rus. It is here that he also meets Olga, who will be an important character in this movie. And then finally, destiny calls him to return back to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his father's murderer. And that is how we spend the majority of the movie, with quite a few twists and turns here and there on the way. Now, like I said, unfortunately, this storyline, in my opinion, is quite simple. And if I had one criticism for this whole thing, is just how basic the whole revenge plotline felt, as well as how predictable it all is. From the minute I saw the ambush on his father take place, I instantly knew what was going to happen in the movie's plotline. Also, as fascinating as the first two parts of this movie were, I must say that there were some decisions taken in the final part of this movie felt a little by the books and far too conventional for a Robert Eggers movie. And since we're talking about negatives here at the start, I must also mention that although The Northman has its small oddities here and there, I was surprised by the lack of complexity, both in the storytelling element, I've already told you, but also in the psychological element of things. Think about The Lighthouse or The Witch and how well those movies explored this element. Now, don't get me wrong, the psychological aspect of things is explored in this movie, just not as much as it was in The Witch or The Lighthouse, although I guess they are two completely different types of movies from The Northman. However, what we miss out on those kinds of complexities, Eggers has more than made up with providing us a movie that, visually speaking, is probably the best movie of the past few years. Clearly, a lot of that $70 to $90 million budget has gone into the production value for this movie. The set pieces are just stunning. Looking at different villages, the architecture, the different tapestries on the walls, the costumes, the weapons, and the armor, I must truly applaud production designer Craig Lathrop. Thankfully, there are no horns here, as Eggers, who has a good background in costume and set design, having worked on that aspect in many different movies prior to becoming the director, really knows what he's doing here and has combined really well with costumer Linda Muir. Sets were built and filmed in Northern Ireland, but apparently Eggers wanted everything to be built with the same timber that would have been used in Viking villages of those times. This includes the buildings themselves, the shields and the tools we see lying around, and so much more. I mean, in one of the first scenes of the movie, as Amleth and his mother meet their king in the hall, we get to see all of the work that has gone into the production design. And like I say, the audience can always tell when stuff looks and feels authentic and real, and it's not just, CGI added elements to the movie. Everything feels real and it really works beautifully. Even the longboat itself was apparently built exactly according to how it would have been built all those years ago. Seeing Skarsgård row was truly an impressive feat in itself and must have required a lot of rows in the gym before. Now, when talking about visuals in this movie, it is not just the beautiful production design that must be mentioned. In classic Eggers style, The Northman is packed with beautifully shot scenes, some incredible dream scenes involving a Valkyrie amongst other classic Viking symbolism and imagery, as well as some truly impressive ritual scenes, starting off with the King Orvandil and Prince Amleth scene, accompanied by the incredible Willem Dafoe. All of this is complemented by the wonderful cinematography by Jaren Blaschke, whose beautiful long takes perfectly capture those incredibly idiosyncratic scenes to their full potential. But ultimately, The Northman is a violent revenge story, and Eggers definitely does not shy away from the bloodshed. No, actually, he revels in every second of it. Whether it's incredibly complexly shot action sequences with the fantastic Skarsgård taking part in some truly impressive choreographed scenes, most of which are shot in those beautiful one-take shots that Eggers loves so much, or if it's assassinations taking place at night to be revealed in all their horrific bloodiness in the morning, showcasing how Eggers is still a great horror movie director. The lighting and color scheme used in this movie are some of the best I have ever seen. I constantly emphasize the importance of directors and cinematographers using their setting to the best of their abilities. And Eggers, together with cinematographer Jaren Blaschke, have truly outdone themselves with building a truly believable Viking world in Northern Ireland, but also successfully capturing some beautiful shots showcasing all the natural beauty that Northern Ireland has to offer. A lot has been mentioned about Alexander Skarsgård's transformation for this role, and yes, let's be honest, he looks incredible. However, his performance is what ultimately matters most, and thankfully, he really does deliver the goods here. He brings about such intensity and such unbridled rage and will for vengeance at times. However, it's not just screaming and raging here, although he does that really, really well. Skarsgård is Prince Amleth, who has lost his father and his whole family, and so yes, he obviously has his moments of revenge, but he also has moments when he must act in a particular way to disguise himself. I can't tell you more because of spoilers, and his acting is really well done in these moments as well. I must also praise the chemistry he built with Anya Taylor-Joy, whom I was so excited to see. She always brings complexity to her characters, and it's the same with her new character, slave girl Olga, who is obviously not just a common slave. I was definitely surprised by Nicole Kidman, who, whilst not having a lot to work with, had one incredible scene near the end of the movie with Skarsgård in which she truly steals the show. Unfortunately, I cannot mention more due to spoilers. Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe are two other actors who understandably have very short screen time but give great performances. Overall, I must say that I was very pleased with the overall performances, and this is especially helped by the great dialogue written by Eggers and Sion. There is something about Eggers' dialogues always sounding so poetic, verging on being too Shakespearean at times, but always a show stealer in every one of his movies. Whilst, like I said, I was not too impressed by the story developments and believe it lacked a bit of complexities there, I must praise the dialogue which was written for this movie. Although I wonder if, in a parallel universe in which people are not afraid to read subtitles, whether this movie could have ever been filmed completely in the original Old Norse. Wouldn't that have been an incredible experience? Finally, I must also praise the soundtrack composed by Robin Carolyn and Sebastian Gainsborough, who reportedly used original instruments which traditionally would have been used in the time of the Vikings. And these include instruments like the tagelharpa, a langspiel, a kraviklir, and a sakpipa. The soundtrack fits perfectly with the tone of the movie and is a wonderful complement to the whole thing. Overall, The Northman was an incredibly intense piece of art I got to watch in the cinema. A piece of art I'm glad is still being produced and released in the cinema. Long gone are the days when movies like The Gladiator or Kingdom of Heaven were easily released and produced. Period piece movies like The Northman or The Green Knight are a rare sight indeed today, mainly because they barely make any money at the box office, which is such a pity. I'm glad, however, that a madman like Eggers still manages to make movies like The Northman, like The Witch, and like The Lighthouse, which are all such great experiences. Ultimately, coming back to The Northman with great performances, visuals, and production design, some very violent action, and just an incredible overall feeling of polish and quality in this movie. I can definitely forgive Eggers for pulling back a little when it came to this movie's complexities, and in a clear attempt to make it a bit more casual, audience friendly. I think that The Northman still deserves a 4.5 out of 5, and my recommendation for anyone interested in great revenge stories or any kind of period piece in general, to be honest, just go watch it in the cinema. Support Robert Eggers' great achievement of a movie. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that review. Cheers, and I'll see you guys next time right here on Ad Lib Talk.